Hello everyone, welcome to my video. This presentation is about the ethnography review project. The ethnography I chose is titled Making Pilgrimages, Meaning and Practice in Shikoku, written by Ian Reader, published by the University of Hawaii Press in 2006. The book is comprised of 350 pages, which include 6 pages of a glossary and 13 pages of reference. The ethnographer Ian Reader, when the book was published, worked as a professor of Japanese and religious studies at Lancaster University. His research interests varied, including religion in the modern world, with a special focus on Japan, and religious practices, such as pilgrimage in a cross-cultural context, and how it has been developed and transformed through the lens of anthropology, history, economics, and so on. There are numerous books and articles he wrote about religion in Japan, including the one titled Religion in Contemporary Japan, which is used as a textbook for an LA religion course. The setting of the fieldwork is a pilgrimage of 1,400-kilometer-long trail surrounding the island of Shikoku, linking 88 worshipping sites with the majority associated with the figure of Kobo Daishi, who was also known as the great Buddhist teacher Kukai while he was alive, and the Shingon sect of Buddhism brought to Japan by him from Tang, China. Usually, the activity involves visiting temples, praying, making offerings, paying fees to receive stamps as visiting proof, and completing as one has received all stamps from 88 sites. The corresponding in Japanese for the 88 official sacred pilgrimage sites is Hachiju Hakasho, and for the pilgrimage is Hinlo or O-Hinlo to be polite, which in this case referring to the pilgrimage route extend widely or everywhere, indicating the encompassing feature instead of a linear place-to-place direction. The fieldwork and research extend over a decade and a half long since the first time Ian Reader visited Shikoku in 1984 with his wife Dorothy, to whom this ethnography is dedicated. He visited Shikoku many times and completed the pilgrimage 3 times with his wife in the year of 1984 and 2000 by foot, in 1990 through an organized bus tour package. Next, I will talk about basic structure, general purpose, main arguments in the ethnography, along with the important concepts that I find worth sharing. The book is divided into 3 sections. The first section covers chapter 1 to 3 that present an overview of the pilgrimage. Chapter 1 introduces the general features, religious and cross-cultural theories, and studies of Shikoku pilgrimage. The chapter 2 is focused on explaining the landscape, which not only include the physical features of Shikoku Island, but the legends and tales relating to Kobo Daishi, the interpretations and symbolic meanings of doing pilgrimage, and the culture and tradition relating to it, as well as traces and objects left by the pilgrims, which altogether shape the emotional terrain. Following is chapter 3 that provide pilgrims' account and stories, which provide a peek into the general pilgrim's attitude and involvement with the pilgrimage and how they might be diverse from each other. Section 2, which are chapters 4 and 5, illustrate the development of the pilgrimage in the historical context. What emerged as an aesthetic Buddhist practice, or shugyo in Japanese, in Heian Jidai gradually became popular activity in the 16th and 17th century. As time progressed, the structure of an institutionalized pilgrimage is developed with the growth of infrastructure, commercial companies, and the published guidebooks. Section 3 covers chapters 6, 7, and 8 that extensively illustrate the pilgrims themselves, with chapter 6 about people who walked by foot and chapter 7 about those taking the bus. Each way people endured hardship. Finally, in chapter 8, Ian Reader talks about the pilgrims who engage in the pilgrims frequently and become permanent pilgrims instead of treating it as a transient experience. Ian Reader, in this ethnography, treats the study of pilgrimage as a complex whole and discuss it through many lenses, as it is made up of many important shaping components. Thus, one cannot fully understand it properly by only looking at one. He also argues that pilgrimage, far from being plain and stable, in both theories and reality, usually comes with changes, tensions, conflicts, and contradictions. Change, as a core feature of the Shikoku pilgrimage, has been demonstrated throughout the ethnography. First of all, The attire that pilgrims wear has changed throughout time. In the pre-modern time, pilgrims usually were portrayed as wearing a bamboo hat, a white shirt, white robe, straw sandals, and a wooden staff. This set of traditional attire also represents the unity with Kobodaishi himself, the color of white associated with the funeral and death in Japan. Although some still choose to wear them, many people in modern times instead wear trainers and sports hats for convenience. Another remarkable change is making pilgrimage itself. People in ancient times can only travel by foot, whereas later people have the option and freedom to travel by bus, car, taxi, and even helicopter. And one could either go alone or in groups, finish in one way, or divide into shorter journeys to complete. The theme of tension and contradiction could be seen in many parts of the ethnography. Just to list a few. First, the pilgrimage is thought to be engaged only by Buddhists, thus assuming the pilgrims all share the same purpose. But in fact, the participants engage with various different purposes, like self-discovery, cure for cancer, unemployment, family duty, personal enjoyment, or making commercial benefits. Second, while pilgrimage is sometimes thought egalitarian regardless of social class, it is observed that inside the pilgrim's community, there are competitions created in terms of speed and times of doing the pilgrimage, which is indicated by the color of talisman from white, green, red, silver to gold, with gold indicate having done the pilgrimage over 50 times. Other tensions are showcased in Pilgrim's account of going through ambivalent emotions that affected by weather, harsh conditions, unfair treatment from the priest, physical pains, and injuries. Many both interviewees, both traveling by foot and bus, reviewed their hardship as enduring ambivalent emotions with self-doubt and thought to give up. But what they also told are times that kind priest arranged lodges for them. Local people passed by and offered alms in forms of money or food or useful things to support their way to complete the pilgrimage. Apart from the main arguments of the ethnography, there are many concepts that I find connected with the things we learned in this semester. Just like any culture, the culture of Shikoku pilgrimage has been a changing phenomenon, influenced by many factors, including the people involved, the traces they left behind, like words for encouragement, signs for pointing directions. Another connection I find is with one challenge assignment, where reducing the time for using technology was an option. From what pilgrims reported, many of them who were suffering mentally or physically saw great improvement after the pilgrimage and because of getting back to a simpler life which concerns mostly sleeping, walking, and eating, as a cycle for weeks or months. It shows that change in lifestyle really makes an impact on one's well-being. Last but not least, as our textbook points out that humans are made to seek meaning, this concept could connect to the purpose of doing pilgrimage, as many people who went for pilgrimage find specific meanings in doing so, and for others who didn't have a reason why they went, they were in some cases lost in life and hoped to find motivation and reason to be alive. While analyzing the ethnography, I think the ethnographer mainly used a more humanistic approach to gather information through chatting with people or conducting interviews afterward. For people who are willing to let the public know their names and stories, he used their real information, and for those who don't, the author used pseudonyms. And as he completed the Shikoku pilgrimage 3 times, with 2 times by foot and 1 time by bus, he gained a decent amount of amic perspective and thoughts as a participant himself. As the purpose of the ethnography is basically to examine Shikoku pilgrimage through a multidisciplinary approach, the author indeed incorporates history, anthropology, economy, statistics collected by other universities, and the cross-cultural studies done by other scholars regarding pilgrimages around the globe, like India, Greece, Spain, and other regional pilgrimages in Japan. After reading this ethnography, I think Ian Reader demonstrated a thoughtful process of both presenting his research, examining Shikoku pilgrimage with regard to many other disciplines, and making the reading fairly easy to follow and understand. Although, like any other ethnography, it also has its own limit and bias. Ian Reader admitted and warned the reader beforehand about his subjectivity and limit in the introduction part. This demonstrates his reflexivity as a thoughtful ethnographer. As I have a great passion for learning pilgrimage, Japanese culture and religion, this book has been very inspiring for me in terms of making connection with knowledge learned from the course, as well as preparing me to better study other courses in the LA. Reading this ethnography has been a fun experience, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in whether anthropology, religious studies, Shikoku Island, history, doing pilgrimages, or just looking to read some interesting accounts based on true cases. To conclude the major theme about the Shikoku pilgrimage, I would like to provide a quote by Ian Reader on the final conclusion page, where he argues that pilgrimage, as a complexity that cannot be reduced to simple theoretical narratives, may be viewed and understood as a continuing process of meanings that are made and remade with every act of every one of its participants. And this is my reference. And thank you very much for listening.